Are you looking for a new whiskey adventure? Then climb in and buckle up. Get ready for one hell of a ride on the Whiskey Trip podcast with your host, Big Chief. Join in as he and his guests explore whiskey and dive into whiskey stories from around the world. Now here's your host, Big Chief.
Hey, it's old Big Chief from the Whiskey Trip, and yeah, you're taking another ride with me. Folks, I got a story here for you. It's been about a year since I've been here to Distillerie Acadian, and I wanted to come back here and talk about their history and the stuff they got going on, and talk about some of their recent releases and some of their future releases and some plans for expansion, and I'm excited about it. But first, you drive through Louisiana and you see nothing but bayous, rice fields, you see farms, you see timber, you see it all. And this is a area that is built on culture, the Acadian lifestyle, I guess, survival, the Cajuns. They came from Nova Scotia. They brought that distilling heritage with them. That art of making whiskey, or moonshine back in the day, was really what it was. But that's the bayou life. It's not just water. It's not just a swamp or a river. It's a culture. The food, the passion for life. It all blends together. And then when you add whiskey to that food, to that culture, and sit down and sip it with good friends and tell good stories, it brings you a true American spirit. And that's what I wanted to come back here and talk to my good friend Philip here. And Philip, over the past year since I visited, me and you have had so many conversations about whiskey, about expansion, about different ideas in the whiskey community and how to market your product better, how you grow, and you've come to be a trusted friend. Whenever I see your phone call, it's usually in the evening times. I can tell he's been working. And he's excited about a project or something, and we have a long discussion. It could be an hour or 2 hours long. It's like two old friends just having a great discussion. But we are here today. We got whiskey in our glass. What's this first pour?
So first pour is going to be our single barrel cask strength that we do typically store picks, or we'll pick a barrel for this distillery. So this is going to be a lot more elevated than our standard everyday Shelford 94. Be kind of bold, right? Bold in your face, rich, long finish coming off of this. I think this one's around 126, maybe 0.4 proof. And I specifically picked this barrel for a distillery release because it's off profile from some of our other single barrels where, I gave it to a friend to taste. Actually gave it to my wife to taste as well. And they both said the exact same thing. I get so much cinnamon off of this one. It's like a cinnamon balm coming out of it. So it's a little bit off profile from our typical bourbons, but that's kind of what I like to showcase these single barrels as, different.
I've had this expression several times, not this single barrel, but I've had several different ones from Philip. But just to tell you where we are exactly, we're about 18 miles off of I-10, Lafayette, Louisiana. You drive 18 miles south down into New Iberia, Louisiana. And right off the highway here, off of Highway 90, your distilleries here is tiny, but you're mighty.
We do a lot in a little space.
Yeah, it's like you're almost the epitome of that Piro that's on your bottle, right?
Yeah.
You can do a lot in a little Piro, right?
Yeah,
you can transport stuff in there. You can go hunting in it. Used for transportation around the bayou, maybe to go see some old friends back in the bayou.
Or even yesterday. Yesterday we got 8 inches of rain in a couple of hours, and everything was flooded around here. So we'll commute to work.
You could have commuted to work in
That's right.
right down the bayou. Yeah. So that's where we're at. I implore you, if you're driving down I-10 from Texas to Florida and you need just a break from that monotonous drive, stop on in here. Take an 18-minute detour. Come on down here. Give Philip a call and say, hey, I need to try this whiskey that Big Chief is raving about. And I'm not the only guy raving about it. There's several other social media folks out there that are just talking about it. You've had some big names come in here. Bruiseville came in here and did some single barrel picks with you. Spillway Liquors comes over here and does picks with you. So you're getting your name on the map. And then this past year at the New Orleans Bourbon Festival, I had Philip come in on one of my panels, and we talked about Gulf Coast whiskeys and what humidity does for it. So we're trying to get your name out there.
I appreciate that. You know, it's been a long road, and I'm going to still continue to this day and every day forward. Thank you for whenever we first met, or whenever you called me and said, I don't think I can review this whiskey, right? But I'll be the first to tell you, you know, it wasn't great back in the day. So we went through every single process and made tweaks and adjustments, and really love the bourbon and all the whiskeys coming out of this distillery at this point. But even more excited to start getting to some bonded products and some more that we're going to release next year.
Well, listeners, for what Philip was talking about there, I had another podcast back in the day. I was a co-host on another show, and the way when I started that show, there was a lot of people bashing distilleries out there. And when you bash a brand like this, that's only one or two people operating here making whiskey, and you bash them, and you have a big number of followers, you got a big reach, you could destroy a place like this. And what Philip did, you sent me your whiskey, and I called him back and said, hey, Philip, man, I hope I'm not going to hurt your feelings, but you're not ready for prime time right now. And I out of all the calls I'd ever made, you probably took it the best. And we're very inquisitive of what we were talking about and why. And lo and behold, I always like trying to stick to my word, because I was like, man, I'll come back to you. And I'm sure you're thinking, yeah, this dude's never going to come back. But I was like, man, I'm down in Texas now. I'm close to this guy. I'm going to go over and see him. And I reached out to you and came over, and lo and behold, I'd actually had your whiskey again. And I was like, you know what? I owe this guy a visit. One of my neighbors, a guy named Clint Drimon, handed me a bottle. I was like, hey, man, have you ever seen this before? And I said, yeah, I've tried it before. And then I tried that, and I was like, how old is this? And he told me, and I was like, all right, Philip deserves a revisit, especially with my new show. So I came over, and, instant connection with you. You know, we're probably cut from the same cloth. Your family was into farming from this area, into this culture here. I'm from the hill country, from a ranch, and that it's like you chew the same dirt almost. Yeah, if that makes sense. It's like two soldiers. You have that common bond, and in whiskey we have that common bond. But as two country boys that hunt, fish, just live life to the fullest, and try to follow your dreams, that's what I found with you. So we came in, we did a show, and I didn't have video at the time, and that's really why I wanted to come over here. Another reason was to video this and to get it out to my YouTubers out there watching. But man, this whiskey is everything you say it is, right? But to me, what makes it so special is that bayou humidity, to where that humidity pushes that whiskey deeper into the barrel. It does. Right? Yep. And it brings out those vanillas. It brings out that brown sugar, or molasses is what we would drink down here.
It is, but you have to be careful with it, you know. And we talked about this before we even started the show. One of my favorite conversations to ever have with anyone is age, and how it's truly just a number. And you have to, there's so many factors that go into how old a whiskey is, you know. And you're right. I mean, we're so hot, we're so humid here, that we have to have certain factors to almost offset that, right? Your barrel entry proof is actually plays a big part in that, or else you'll start pulling a lot more tannins out of the wood, which you don't want too many tannins. You want some. I mean, the structure of your barrel house, and so we have to have these considerations going into the barrel, pre-planning, you know, say 6 years down the road.
Well, let's tell listeners a little bit of the backstory of how your family really got into whiskey, for those folks out there listening and watching that haven't heard that story on the past episode. How did you guys get into whiskey?
One of my dad's friends invited him to make quote unquote whiskey, right? And he said, "Oh, but can I bring my boys with me?" And he says, still to this day, that's probably the worst question that he's asked, because once I started in it, I just got the bug. And I wanted to make a bourbon, and I tried and I failed, and I tried and I failed, and finally got to a point where, you know, this is actually pretty good. In hindsight, right, it was miles away from where we should have been. But kind of convinced my dad and my brother to start a distillery with me. And we did this as an expensive hobby. It was once a month on the weekends. We'd get together, barbecue, make a little bit of whiskey. But you could imagine once a month on the weekends how much whiskey we just did not make. When we started to come out with it, I mean, we were allocating 4 or 5 bottles to stores, and that's kind of silly. So we made the collective decision, all right, are we going to keep this as just a fun hobby, or are we going to, grow and expand? And that's what we did. We got a new still and setup and made not only a higher quality whiskey, but quadruple the amount of distillate in half the amount of time. So that's kind of where we're at. And to start, we could have never imagined, we're a small building, but like you said, we're mighty. We do a lot out of this small space. We could have never imagined we're at this spot right now. And now we're talking about a pretty massive expansion.
Well, talking about an expansion takes money.
Yes,
right?
It does.
Do you have the money for an expansion right now?
We do have some investors, but if anybody's watching and listening, we're starting talks right now. And once that's settled and done, we already are actually currently working on our plans for our new building. We have our new land, which is about 8 minutes from here. So it's relatively in the same place, but it'll be a much better setup for us moving forward.
Now you're talking about going from a pot still to a column still.
Column.
Do you have any fears that your whiskey's going to change?
I know it's going to change. I do know it's going to change, but there's certain things that we can do to keep it relatively similar. Like your mash bill is not the only thing that's going to impact the flavor on that. So what it's going to do is going to be more, say, appealable to the masses, right? It'll take some of that craft out of it, and we're excited about it. It's not only going to produce a whiskey that we're looking towards and looking forward to, but it's also going to expand our portfolio where we're going to tenfold production with this new location.
Well, I'm excited about it. I'm excited because you are trying to win your neighborhood here. You're trying to win your area and then win the state of Louisiana and your goal is to become the biggest distiller in the state of Louisiana.
Well, I wouldn't even say that because, we're friends with every distillery here in Louisiana, but it's really just being true to ourselves and putting out the products that we want to put out in the way that we want to put them out.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being the biggest, man. Buffalo Trace, they're proud of that, right?
Yeah.
Or Jack Daniels or Jim Beam, they're proud of those numbers. But at some point, I'd be proud to say, I know the largest distiller in Louisiana.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, this is kind of our claim to fame where I'm proud to say that we put out Louisiana's first bourbon. As we know, we just talked about, it wasn't great, but we wanted to produce a bourbon that our state and our culture could be proud of. And I think now, what we're getting towards in the whiskey that we're putting out, we're truly doing that.
So we're drinking this whiskey right here. This is a 4-grain whiskey.
Yeah, so this is going to be 69% corn, 12% rye, 6% wheat, and 13% malted barley. So 4 grain.
Why did you go with a 4-grain and not a rye or a wheat?
So still to this day, I mean, I've started a whole experimental whiskey line where I'm playing with different grains, different mash bills. To this day, I've never made a traditional whiskey. So your traditional whiskey is going to be, high corn. It's going to be typically 15% rye, no wheat, and then malted barley, and a lower percentage. So we want to differentiate ourselves. Not that we're the only 4-grain out there by any means, but it's more of a niche bourbon where you get more the different flavor profiles from the grain. So you're getting the sweetness from the corn, the spice from the rye, the mellowness from the wheat, but you get that earth tones from that higher 13% malted barley. So it's kind of a more well-rounded, well-crafted whiskey.
Wow. So your family, how long have they been here in Louisiana?
Oh, we've been here, 100 years maybe, longer.
And just French Canadian?
Yeah. Yeah, half of our family is from France, a little island called Ile de Ré. Actually, they have wineries there that I'm really looking forward to go and visit, and hopefully maybe getting some of those barrels to bring them back to maybe do some finished bourbon in a winery where our family is from. So that's half of our family. Our other half is from Scotland. So about to have a big birthday this year and looking at possibly going up to Scotland, Ireland to kind of see my roots and meet some hopefully family out there and just see the way these Scotch and Irish whiskey distilleries do things maybe a little different.
Well, they don't have none of them big giant column steels. They don't have that.
No, but it's interesting. I had a manager from a distillery come by. And they were on the island of Isla, and she was tasked with creating a small experimental distillery for this larger distillery. But talking through their process, I mean, it was so interesting because, Scotch is similar to beer where you're not fermenting on the grain. You're only fermenting your wort, so just a liquid. Well, they have it automated to a point where it'll automatically pump out their wort into their fermenters, and then their drain gets automatically dropped onto conveyors and automatically onto trucks. And talking through that process, I've never heard this before, and seeing how completely different. I don't even know of a bourbon distillery doing something like that.
No, but that's a major problem for larger distilleries is their spent grain, or spent mash, right? Is how do you get rid of it? Do you just put it in the landfills? In Kentucky, there's only so many cattle farmers there that could take it within a reasonable distance.
And that's a pretty big consideration that we've been having talks for about a year now. And what are we going to do? So we're tenfolding production. We're going to be, going through around 800,000 pounds of grain per year. What do we do with this grain at the end of it? Well, I think we have some guys on board where they want to actually dry the grain and start making feed out of it. So some dry feed, but then all the liquid that's coming off of that is actually very rich in nutrition, and you can use it as fertilizer. So you can use both parts of it.
Well, you're talking about spent grain, and we were talking about we both like to hunt. And one company out there is actually making deer feed out of spent grain. And you wouldn't think that deer would eat that, but there's so many products out there like that. And if you could compress it into a block,
yeah,
I mean, that's a
Deer
Have you tried to take any spent mash out in the woods?
So I gave some to some guys who were pig hunting, actually right around here, and they had a good night. But so a little bit of that. Now that wasn't the dried grain that we're talking about. That was just wet, and they put it on the ground, and hogs will basically eat anything. And it worked for them.
I mean, here you probably could put it out on a metal table with some kind of drain, and as long as it's a dry day, here it would dry it out.
Yeah, you just have to be worried about mold, right? So you have to have specialized equipment to truly dry it. If you're making a product that you're going to sell and want it to be the highest quality, you need that equipment to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting not too far away from whiskey because we're talking about the problems of spent grain and what do you do with that spent grain. Now your barrels, you changed your barrels out altogether too. You went from smaller barrels, 25 gallons, 30-gallon barrels, up to the traditional. And I even hate saying traditional because it wasn't until 64 that the 53-gallon barrel was the traditional whiskey barrel. Before that, it was the 40s. But you went to the traditional barrels today.
We did. So when we first started, and back on the store, and it kind of all makes sense. Think about us making whiskey once a month on the weekends. I mean, it would take us a couple months to fill a barrel, right?
Yeah.
Especially the size equipment we had in the beginning. So that's one of the reasons why we started with 10 gallons. But the main reason was I tried to buck the system to say that everybody says you can't make a great bourbon in a small barrel. I'm going to prove it. And I've completely flopped my decision on that point where I think you can make a very good whiskey and bourbon out of a small barrel, but to make the best, highest quality, you need to be in a traditional full-size 53-gallon barrel. So, yeah, we're completely out of our 10 gallons. Then we bumped up to 15s and 30s. Well, about a year and a half ago, we dumped 98% of our 15-gallon barrels, and we put them into brand new 53s. So technically double oak, but it's more us getting into the big barrel game, getting away from those kind of high tannin whiskey coming out of those barrels. And what we also did with that was when we mingled them is we dropped the entry proof. So we traditionally went in at 124 proof. Then we dropped our mingled, as well as all of our new make is going into the barrels at 115. So we talked about this earlier, is the lower barrel entry proof, yes, it costs us more money, not just in the barrels, but also in the storage. Now you need more storage for all those additional barrels, but you're starting to pull more sugars out of the wood. Like I know you've heard of the term of slow water reduction, right? You gradually add a little bit of water, over time to where you're doing the same thing. You're pulling those sugars out of that wood. And what we're seeing now with some of these mingle barrels, as well as our still young but our new make in the big barrels with the smaller entry proof, it's a heightened product even compared to what we're drinking now.
I love what we're drinking now. It has got that. It's got that bayou spice to me. And when I think of Louisiana, I think of spice. I mean, you got Tabasco right down the road. It's aged in bourbon barrels. A lot of people don't know that. They do a whole process on the barrels, like they'll sand all the char out, but they do, and they change the rings out to galvanized rings, because otherwise the acidity down there, the salt air down there in Avery Island would just rust those rings right.
I'm sure. It's sure the acidity with the actual Tabasco product itself as well. But there's something to me like, some of the older barrels that we used, they had kind of a galvanized rung on them. Mm-hmm. Now we're using some others that don't, and they're starting to rust. I love a rusted rung.
It looks beautiful.
It looks great, But especially we're starting to play, with different cooperages to see, profiles coming out, as well as different levels of char and toast as well. And right now what we love coming out is a number 3 char medium toast. You kind of pull out some toffee, some coconut. It's just, I'm excited for the future coming out.
Well, hell, I'm excited for the future. Well, we'll finish this up in the break, and when we come back, I noticed you got your first finished bourbon over there, and I'm excited to taste it because it's sold out in a short period of time.
Yeah, we released it, I guess this might have been 2 weeks ago now, and sold out in 30 minutes, and we'll talk about the actual whiskey when we get there, but we didn't know. I mean, you have some of these other distilleries where, they'll do a drop or a release at their distillery, and they may have people lined up 24 hours in advance. We don't have that clout yet, right? So we didn't really know kind of what to expect or how many people, and people overwhelmed us.
You're getting here. You're getting there. I feel like you're on the map right now, and then people are going to have that cult following, and then they're going to be like, I gotta have this Distillerie Acadian, Cajuns cut, finished, and whatever you're finishing in. So,
well, not just that. I'm excited about all of our experimental whiskeys coming out, because everyone's going to be completely different. They'll be on profile, I'd say, for our style of whiskey, right? You're still going to get that craft coming out of it. Still be big, bold flavors, but to see the differences in these different grains and different mash bills, I'm really excited for people to start trying those once they're ready. But we made that mistake once, as we already talked about, is we released whiskey too early. We're not going to do that again. One of the biggest things coming out is actually this coming March, which we're about 8 months away or so. Our 94 proof Cajun's cut is moving to 100 proof bottled in bond. And it really excited about that. It's going to be the same price for the consumer. The following year it's going to be a 5-year bonded. The next year it's going to be a 6-year bonded. So, but at that time, now we're going to have no whiskey leaving this distillery under bonded. So either minimum 4 years, and it's going upwards to kind of 6, or we'll see kind of where that year falls. But no whiskey is going to come out of this distillery under 100 proof as well.
Well, listeners, you stick with us, and we'll be right back. Seldom Seen Farm, bringing bourbon barrel-aged maple syrup goodness from everything from pancakes to whiskey cocktails. Seldom Seen Farm in northern Ohio has something magical for your whiskey cocktails instead of that old basic simple syrup. Kevin Holy and his family are harvesting the sap from over their 5,000 maple trees and turning it into something delicious, maple syrup. He then goes a step further by aging in bourbon barrels for 6 to 9 months. That's right, bourbon barrel-aged maple syrup. Shh, don't tell Miss Viv, but I love to pour it over my buttered pecan ice cream. Visit them at seldomseenmaple.com. All right, listeners, we're back for the second half, and I got Mr. Philip here, and I'm at Distillerie Acadian in New Iberia, Louisiana, 18 miles off of I-10. Just head south. That's all you got to do. Come down here and buy this craft whiskey from the bayou. It don't get no more American than this right here. People that are making it off the land, from grain to glass. Philip here, you are the distiller. I pulled up here this morning and you were hustling. You were hustling. You were driving a forklift. You were moving barrels, moving crates. You moving everything. You helped me set up podcast gear. You did all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we're getting ready. We have a big day full of tours. So we do our tours once a quarter, and really fun, really good time where, we talked about this already in the beginning of the podcast, how we're a smaller building and we do a lot in a small space. But we only allow 10 people in every hour. One, because we're smaller, but two, because it's a little more intimate. You can actually ask questions. You can dive in. You can nerd out with me on mash bills and processes if you want, or you can just, come for the tour and taste all of our products. So we're getting ready for that. We have a full day of tours today and excited to do it.
Man, I tell you, listeners, if I do a video and I say I'm going to be somewhere, I promise you I'm going to be there. I put some videos out and said, hey, I'm going to be down here at Distillerie Acadian. If you want to come see the big bad booty daddy of bourbon, the Weedy King of Kentucky, I'm here. Magically, I showed up. I got up early this morning. The early bird gets the worm, as I said. The alarm went off at 5 o'clock. Little Cody Jinks, and I was like, man, I gotta get up and get it rolling and get on down the road. It's about a 2-hour drive over here from South Texas. So, and if you don't know who Cody Jinks is, you need to check him out. Just old school country to me, but he's a new artist out there. Not really new. I've been listening to him about 10 years now, but yeah. So what do we got in our glass right now talking about mash bills?
Yeah, so this is a fun one. This is one of our first, this is our first finished bourbon that we've ever put out. And this was just a test, really just to see if it worked. So we took only one 15-gallon barrel and we gave it to Two Warriors Meadery up in West Monroe, Louisiana. And talking through their master brewer up there and kind of the flavor profiles we wanted, what we settled on was their blueberry mead. So they make a few of them. They make a couple of dry meads, a couple of sweeter fruit meads, and then some dessert meads. So this, we settled on a blueberry mead, and it was really a test for them as well. So they put the blueberry mead in there, and it made it exponentially better. They already had a good base product of a blueberry mead, but the barrel age is so good. So it was a test for them. It worked. They gave us a barrel back, and I went through the barrel house and picked out a specific single barrel for this release, put it in the blueberry mead barrel, and let's just say it worked for us, and very excited about this. Is our first finish that we've ever put out. And we dropped it, I think, 2 weeks ago and had a pretty big crowd outside and sold out in about 30 minutes. And, hearing the reviews from everyone's loving it, which makes us feel nice because that's what we said. So if you like this as much as we do, let us know, because we're going to start doing some bigger batches of it, and you're going to start seeing some different finishings come out from us. Like the meadery has a barrel right now with their blackberry mead in it. And as soon as we get it back, we're going to finish one of our bourbons in there. So we're starting to play with different finishings. I have some Tokai barrels, some Mirage barrels coming, and different finishings, different whiskeys, different experimentals. This is going to be a fun next couple of years.
And this right here on the nose, and I just made some blueberry dump cake, to where you take a cast iron pot, you put just fresh blueberries in there, put a little sugar on them, dump a cake mix on top of it, put a stick of butter on it, and stick it in a smoker and let it roll.
Sounds good.
Man, baby, I'm telling you what, it's lip smacking good. And you put some vanilla ice cream. All that is in this glass right here. Sticky, sweet, not overly sweet to where it's a dessert whiskey, because I wouldn't consider this a dessert whiskey. It's finished perfect.
Yeah, and going into it, we didn't want that. We didn't want the finish to be the highlight. We wanted the whiskey to be the highlight with a slight different finish on it, right? We never want to kind of overpower the whiskey that we're putting in there.
I think you hit spot on. 30 minutes for a drop is amazing. I'm kind of sad that I didn't get a bottle of this. I mean, I'm gonna cry a little bit, I think. Now, listeners, you see something sitting right there in front of us. This is a bottle of your T Moon.
Yep.
Tell us about T Moon.
T Moon is it's a difficult one. So it's our worst seller in our store. It's the best seller here in the distillery because it's a hand sell. If you read the bottle, it says spirits distilled from grain and cane. people read that in the store because it doesn't have a whiskey designation, doesn't have a rum designation. And like, what is that? So we explained to everyone, whether we're doing a tasting or a full-blown tour, we make this with 4 grains: corn, rye, wheat, and barley. But then we add cane sugar to the mash before fermentation. So no sugar added after the fact, but before fermentation. As soon as you add sugar, you cannot call it a whiskey because whiskey is made from all grain. That's why the federal government gave us that classification of what the spirit is. But you'll get notes of a whiskey from the grain, from the white oak that we age it with. You'll get notes of a rum from the sugar that we put in it. So I like to say if whiskey and rum had a baby, it'd be Tea Moon. So it's just a little on the sweeter side. It's not going to be more flavor packed, kind of bold in your face as our bourbons, but it's just an easy sipper. It's so easy where you can have it, neat or on the rocks, but it makes a very, very good cocktail as well.
I mean, every time I come, I try to grab a bottle, and we go through it pretty fast. It's a great mixer, especially in the wintertime, and like a hot toddy. If you put a little cinnamon and cloves in it, oh my God. You talk about magic and stuff. You get out by a fire at nighttime. Man, we don't get that many cold nights in southeast Texas or down here in southwest Louisiana. So you got to take advantage of those when you do get them and enjoy life with a little bit of Tea Moon. Hopefully the moon's shining when you're drinking it by a fire with some good friends, talking about hunting stories, talking about old loves, just talking about life.
Well, that's right. And people who understand what it is and truly enjoy the product, they're a little disappointed at us because we took it out of production. We still have a good amount aging right now, so we probably have, realistically 2 years left on it. But we took it out because we'll talk about a couple other SKUs that we do have coming in, so kind of making a way for that. But we're starting to do some fun things with it. So this is our 10-year anniversary coming up, and we took our Tea Moon. We actually started double oaking it in one of our bourbon barrels. And we took that out and we are triple oaking it right now. And it just kind of heightened the product to where, you kind of get that sweeter notes coming off of the Tea Moon, but it almost transformed it into I like to say a high rye bourbon that's been finished in a rum barrel. And it's none of that. So we're going to have, for our 10-year anniversary this year, it's going to be a triple oak Tea Moon finished in a strawberry wine barrel. So I was up in Mississippi last weekend, brought the barrel to them. They already had the wine going. We poured the wine into the barrel. That's selling right now.
Is that Boone Farms?
No. Not Boone Farms. But so and we wanted to play with something that kind of be a little unique on it. I've never seen really a strawberry wine finished. And I thought it would go well with that triple oak of the Tea Moon that we have now. So that's going to be a fun one. I think we're going to drop that around November this year. And special bottle, special wax, special everything on it. But
I mean, I love it. But you keep getting rid of stuff that everybody loves. Like, I'm looking at these other bottles right over here, the Bonville, and I was looking at social media today, and I see somebody posted a story, and then you guys shared it, and they're pretty much begging you to keep making American single malt. And you've taken that out of production. Have you rethought that process?
Oh, I thought about it, but
man, come on.
No, so look, single malt is tough. People say single malt is the next big thing, in the industry. We were hearing it was tequila, now we're hearing maybe a single malt. We don't see it. I know we're a little bit behind the times here in Mississippi, Louisiana, kind of where we're selling some of our products. We're about to be in Colorado, but we basically can't give away single malt here in this location, and that's why people are a little disappointed that one as well, is why we're taking it out. But again, we're taking it out to where, we have to make something that sells. And what we're looking towards, so we already talked about our Cajun's cut bourbon moving to bottled and bond next year. And if it's ready, the preliminary tasting is saying that it is, but immediately after we move to bottled and bond for Cajun's cut, we're going to release our bonded wheated bourbon. And then a couple months later, our bonded rye whiskey.
So you're trying to draw me back in with that wheated bourbon.
That's right.
Yeah, you know me. I got to have some wheated bourbon. Well, let's get back to that Tea Moon and that cap that's sitting up there real fast. Now, listeners, I've been trying to do a giveaway each week on the show, and Philip here has been very generous. We're going to give away this bottle of Tea Moon and this camouflage cap. You saw one on my big old noggin and stuff, so I know it'll fit you. It's a Richardson 112 cap, which that's the only thing I wear. But we're going to give this away to one lucky listener. what you got to do on Instagram is you got to tag Distillerie Acadian, and then tag 4 of your friends on the comments on the main post of the podcast episode. Tag 4 people. You got to reside in the United States, because I can't just be shipping all over the world, or to the moon or to Mars or wherever you live. But in the United States, and you got to be 21 years of age. That's pretty simple. Make sure you follow the Distillerie Acadian on Instagram, on Facebook, and you're on TikTok as well.
Yes, we are.
So make sure you give them a follow on all those social media platforms at Distillerie Acadian, and we'll get this out. Now, we're going to announce this. We're going to give you 1 week. So Monday at 6 p.m. like I always do, I'll get on there. I'll put a post out announcing the winner and stuff. I picked the winner. Tag 4 friends, though. The more people we can get to know about Distillerie Acadian, about his craft whiskey here, about New Iberia, Louisiana. These folks down here have been through it over the years. How many hurricanes have hit here in the past, 10 years?
Oh, too many. And that's another big thank you to you. I mean, we, let's say, didn't know each other too long, and you opened up your house to our family. We ended up going even further west just to get out of the danger zone of it. But yeah, I mean, it's every year we're having a few of them where we're having to evacuate or do some major preparations for it.
Well, let's talk about that networking and building relationship. My phone is loaded up with distilleries across America, with resources throughout the community. And if I think that you are the salt of the earth, if you live life right, I want to help you out. And every time Philip says, hey, do you know this person, or do you know that person, or do you know this, somebody that does this? And I'm like, man, I do know somebody that does that or has knowledge about that, and I'm going to try to connect you. And I feel like you and maybe 2 other people out there I've tried to give the most love to, just because of the way you connect with other people and stuff, and you're not asking for something from somebody. You try to give back to your community here in New Iberia. You trying to give back to the whiskey community and stuff. And if there's a distiller in the future, if you expand, you're probably going to have another distiller to help you out. So you never can tell who you're going to get a phone call from that I've dished that number out.
Well, that's right. I mean, you always try to help out, everyone else in the industry, because people like to say, oh, that's your competition. We're all our own competition, because it all falls down to distribution, right? And making a quality product. But if I can come in and if I can help out another distiller who may be having a problem, talking about the spent grains, had a distillery conversation the other day, and they were planning to do a certain process with their spent grains, and I just looked at them and said, no, you're not. I said, here's the problems that you're going to have. And we kind of talked through that, because I've been through the ringer on that. And I lean on other distillers, and we have a network of each other where, I talked to one this week, and we kind of tweaked a little process that I had. So I try to give back where I can.
Well, that's what it's all about to me, is giving back. And even open up your distillery to tours, even if it's 10 people an hour and stuff. I think they're getting a great deal. Some places you go and you don't get that many pours, you don't get that much, you don't even get to talk to the distiller. Here at Distillerie Acadian, you're actually going to get to meet the man, the myth, the legend. You might have seen him on a YouTube channel, but what you're going to get to do is interact with him, and you're going to get to drink his whiskey, not somebody else's whiskey, not something else he's sourced or contract distilled. He's making it right here. Like I said, grain to glass. So why not come in here, pay him a visit? Like I said, 18 miles off of I-10. Millions and millions of people drive down I-10. And I'm sure Philip would be glad if he could just get 10% of that to come down.
Oh, absolutely.
There. 10%.
Oh, we love having people come in, because we stand behind it and say, drink it before you buy it. We've all bought bottles, or a bottle of wine or whatever, and then you get home and you spend your hard-earned money, and maybe it's just not for you. So we always stand behind it. Taste it before you buy it. Come talk to us. Let us tell you the story of kind of how we started, why we did certain things with some of our whiskeys, and yeah. I mean, this is probably one of the funnest days that we have of the years whenever we do tours.
So let's do a little quick fire question here.
Okay.
Quick fire questions. What's your favorite whiskey besides your own?
Craft. If you're craft and you're making it yourself, especially I'm a big fan not only of the whiskeys but also the people and the distillers themselves. But Crittenden's out of Mississippi, Detling out of Alabama. If you're craft, if you're making it yourself, that's what I'm going after.
Great answer. I can't say that better myself. Somebody called me the king of craft one time, and I say thank you for telling me that. When you said it stung a little bit, but now I embrace it. I embraced that story.
I think I could speak for all of us craft distillers. We're so appreciative of you and people like you putting highlight on craft distillers, because it is a hard industry, right? But giving the love where it's due, and finding these craft distillers where maybe nobody would have ever heard of them if you didn't come in and do the show.
What's one thing that you want to try in the future that you haven't tried yet?
Someone else's actual bourbon?
No, not a bourbon, but a process.
Process. I'm very excited to get the column still up and running, but playing with the different grains on our experimentals. You're going to like to hear this, I am putting a single malt back into experimentals, just for experimentals, but talking with our grain company, Tex Malt out of Fort Worth, Texas, very, very good company. But I mentioned to him, say, hey, I'm thinking about putting a single malt in the experimentals. What do you think? Is there maybe a certain mash bill that you've ever, and they big smile, immediately started spitting off ideas and whatnot. But yeah, I think just playing with the different grains and seeing, what each grain actually does. I kind of fell in love with some malted rye, which I haven't used before, as well as triticale. Triticale was an incredible grain where it's a hybrid between a rye and a wheat, and that mash followed through on the distillate, but it tasted like Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
What's your end goal in all this? Where do you hope to end up?
Well, like you made the comment, to be the biggest in Louisiana. I wouldn't necessarily say it's that, but I want to start getting to where our whiskey is truly up to age, where the original goal of the distillers was to have a bourbon and a distillery here in Louisiana that not only us but the state and the culture could be proud of, and start expanding our profile to not just the Gulf South, and start getting into all throughout the United States. That's kind of the end goal.
You could go back in time, what is one thing you would change?
That is a great question. I can only pick one, right?
I wouldn't have shipped that whiskey to Big Chief.
We could be here for another hour. No, I would have sent that, because if I didn't send you that whiskey, I wouldn't have made changes. So I'm so appreciative of that. If I could change one thing, oh boy. I think so. When we first started, we started with a pot still that I made. It was a 240-gallon pot still. I used to work in a machine and welding shop. I made it myself. If I could redo everything again, I would start with the high-quality still that we have now.
That's fair. Who do you owe the most to out of this whole process?
There's not one person. I mean, every day, we become. I could have never imagined the amount of people I've met with this distillery and starting this endeavor, and just the good friends that I've made from that. All of our fans that have supported us from day one and are always there. Guys like you coming in and highlighting, us and other craft distilleries. So it's more of a collective, just a community who's always backed us.
What would you tell other craft distilleries that are getting started about podcasts, YouTubers, and social media folks?
Do it. If you ask me, I'm going to say yes. I've done podcasts where, they've had hundreds of thousands of followers. I've done podcasts where they had 3. But just like you coming in and highlighting us and showing us the world, well, who am I to say no to someone who maybe has 3 followers? So I'm going to support you just like you're coming in and asking me questions and supporting me.
To me, it's probably the cheapest form of marketing you can get. This right here, yes, it costs you a little bit of whiskey in a bottle and a cap for listeners, but to put an ad in a paper or a magazine is going to cost you 100-fold.
Well, exactly. And you and I had this conversation is you get these marketing companies, they're very good. I'll give them that. But you can overdo it on marketing, and then all of a sudden you're closing the doors because you spent all of your budget on marketing. So you have to be really methodical and strategic about how you kind of put your name out there. Shoot, in the very beginning, whenever we started making it, we had 0 social media presence on purpose. We didn't kind of want to say, hey, we're Distillerie Acadian, come back in quite a few years to see, what we're making. But so we kind of kept it, low key. And then once we started producing some products, then we started getting our name out there.
Anybody in your family out there? We got family members in the room too, but anybody out there that you want to say thank you to?
All of my family. I mean, one of my cousins from Houston area, he always come in, huge supporter, and I have another cousin who absolutely loves T-Moon and hates me that we're taking it out of production. But yeah, all of our family has been very supportive throughout this whole process.
Man, I was down in Grand Isle, Louisiana, and I was doing a whiskey tasting for a guy's birthday, Paul. Happy birthday once again, buddy. But his family actually knew like one of your cousins or something in the New Orleans area and stuff. And they were like, oh, I got to take a photo of you and this whiskey and send it to his family. And I was like, no surprise you're in Louisiana. I think all the cypress trees in Louisiana are related to each other, just like the people. Yeah. Everybody's related to somebody.
You start talking 5 or 10 minutes, you're going to find 10 people that
it's that 10 degrees of separation here in Louisiana. Well, Philip, man, once again, outstanding coming in here and drinking your whiskey with you. I appreciate you putting up a giveaway. This bottle of T-Moon right here, the camouflage cap that I have, I love, that I wear out and stuff. The way you're going to win it, on the post of this, you'll see Philip's beautiful mug up there announcing the show on Instagram. I want you to comment under there at Distillerie Acadian and tag 4 of your friends on Instagram. I'm going to let it run for a week, Monday evening at 6 p.m. I'll put it out there for the world who won, and I'll get you this bottle and this cap right here. Where can we find you on social media?
So we're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We have a lot of information. We try to be more transparent nowadays with everything we're doing, not just experimentals. On our website, we have all of our mash bills. So if you have any questions, or if someone just has a question, reach out to me. Reach out to us, give us a call, and we're happy to just talk about our distillery.
And what days is the distillery open?
The distilleries are typically open in the afternoons. Once we're done with the mashing, the distilling process in the back and whatnot, then we kind of open it up to tasting. So we implore everybody, come see us, come have a conversation with us, come drink a little bit of whiskey with us. If you can make it down to our tours at once a quarter, there's such a good time. We have one today, but come see us.
Any last words for the listeners out there, the people watching on YouTube?
No, just take, keep an eye on us. Watch some of these special releases that we're going to have. We're going to have one here coming in November. We have a couple others next year. Have our whole bonded lineup coming out next year, new packaging and all. So, just keep an eye out for us. We're always up to something over here.
All right, Philip. Well, I appreciate you letting me come in your house and bring your story to the world out there. Listeners, you know where you can find old Big Chief. You can find me at The Whiskey Trip on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and now YouTube. Yes, please go over to YouTube, hit that top button up there, hit that subscribe button right there. That way you can find out when I put out my shows or an announcement of a giveaway like this T-Moon and this camouflage cap right here. If you listen to me, listen to Mark and Matt from The Bourbon Life. They always put out great content. You can check them out on Spotify or Apple iTunes, Apple Podcast. Once you listen to them and you listen to me, I know you love me. So go ahead and give me that 5-star review, write some comments, and then post those comments back over onto my Facebook page at The Whiskey Trip. Those comments, those reviews, what they do is they open up doors to distilleries like Distillerie Acadian. I'm able to bring you the rest of the dram, as I always like to say, and get great guests on my show like Mr. Philip here from Distillerie Acadian. Come down to New Iberia. You will not regret the 18 miles that you drive down Highway 90. Come down here, pay him a visit, drink his whiskey, and buy yourself a couple bottles. Support small business, support craft whiskey. I can't say that enough. I will be putting this t-shirt, the Bourbon Bullshitter t-shirt, out on my webpage on the 19th of June. That's the day. We're going to do a pre-order. Once I get to 50 shirts, I'll put the order in. It'll take about 2 weeks to make those, and I'll get them out and stuff. I'm also going to go ahead and put this Whiskey Trip baseball cap out. It's a Richardson 112. So I'm going to put both of those things on there on the 19th. I'm off on that day, so I have time to do that work. But I would really appreciate you purchasing my swag, one of my whiskey glasses, one of my hats, or this Bourbon Bullshitter t-shirt. This is old Big Chief. and thanks for taking this ride with me.